Good evening and welcome to Las Vegas Arts Alive. My name is John Nasshan and you're listening to 91.5 FM. It's your community and your radio station. Maybe you listen online at KUNV.org. All we ask is that you listen. My guest this week is a young lady that I've recently gotten to know that, she does some great things for people. And her name is Tara Phelps. Good afternoon, evening.
Good afternoon. Evening, technically, I guess. How are you?
All right, I'm very good. How about you?
Very good.
Good. Let's get some information about maybe about where you were born and where you grew up and how you ended up here.
How I ended up here. Well, I was actually born in Chicago, so I am still a Bears fan.
Where were you born in Chicago?
Cook County Hospital.
Yeah?
Yeah, and
I was a suburban kid.
Were you?
Oak Park.
Okay,
Yeah.
so my grandparents and family were in Kenilworth, so North Shore. And my dad was actually a radio broadcaster for CBS.
Really?
Back there, yes. And late 60s, he got an opportunity to move out to Los Angeles. And so we up and moved, and for the better part of my life, I grew up in Pasadena, San Marino, San Gabriel Valley area. And then after graduating high school and college, ended up moving up to Silicon Valley and Northern California.
What were you doing there?
So I had this really grand idea early in my career that I was working in real estate. So I was an escrow officer for Chicago Title and Tyco Title for a number of years, and worked commercial transactions and worked downtown at Figueroa and Fifth, and then a colleague and friend of mine suggested that Hewlett Packard was looking for consultants to grow their professional services organization. I said, "Gosh, Steve, I'm really happy. I'd love to. I'm a big fish in a little pond. Let me stay." And he said, "Well, no. I told them that you'd be there Tuesday for an interview." And I went up for an interview because he was my friend. I really wasn't looking for a job.
Yeah, like, thanks, buddy.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. But at his suggestion, Hewlett Packard made me an offer that I couldn't refuse. And so I, unplugged from Southern California and moved to Northern California, and that really just launched my career.
Okay. So Silicon Valley?
Silicon Valley, started off consulting, as many people do, traveling around the country. We actually grew a professional services or consulting services practice from $250,000 in revenue to $180 million in revenue in 18 months. Yeah. So
now, consultant has a lot of meanings. And it's
I'm a consultant. I'm here to help. Is usually what we say.
Yeah,
right?
but it gets thrown around a lot in a lot of different areas.
Yes.
As far as there's radio consultants, there's broadcast consultants, there's computer consultants.
Right.
You were more of a financial consultant?
Actually, I was in the technology field.
Okay.
So I started off designing and building enterprise-wide networks. So at that time, there were local, you would have a local network built maybe just for an office or a small campus. But in my case, I was building them literally across the world. So it started off in that endeavor. And then what was recognized pretty quickly is that I was really good at managing projects and at managing programs. So some of the Hewlett Packard clients that we had literally had 3,000 offices across the world, and managing a team of 150 people at any given time to execute on a strategy and plan to implement computer systems or a particular type of software or a particular type of sales strategy.
Similar to the 45,000 employees of Oracle.
Yeah, exactly. Getting up on a stage and presenting to 700 salespeople, this is our new technology, this is the spin that we have on it, this is our unique selling proposition, and delivering that to the heads of some of these big businesses. I've sat in those conference rooms, and it's a pretty interesting endeavor.
One of the things that I hear as a ongoing complaint from the tech area of big companies is that salespeople will often do and say anything to get the sale. And then the poor techie has to make the promise real.
You know, I've been in that hot seat before, and unfortunately on many occasions. But what I learned very quickly was if I integrated myself as part of the team, that we could sort of mitigate some of that. So saying, this is what our best hope is, you know, this is worst case, this is probably actual case, and this is best case. But I will tell you that I've been in the hot seat before where I've had to go in and say, well, you know, that revision that you were hoping for, it's not, and have that CFO yell at me, which is kind of ironic because then when I eventually moved over into sales, I made very sure that I wouldn't promise what I couldn't deliver.
Well, one of the problems that you know, I'm on the user end with things like that, because we are a radio station now that's all computerized and everything's hard drive, and they promise things and then you wait, and the user sits around going, "But I have a big investment here. Right? Why am I waiting?" Right. And I think your concept that I'm getting was that you were basically managing the team from within.
Absolutely. Again, it's being realistic and really putting your vendor, if you will, on the spot for, you know, truth be told, technology, we've gotten so used to technology and being able to have it be that productivity tool that sometimes you forget automating a really bad process or trying to automate something. Right. So what you have is a faster bad process. Right.
Basically perfuming a pig.
Yeah, and that's not where you know you gain productivity from. So just keeping in mind, can we improve? If we can't get the technology to do it, let's take a look at our process because maybe there's something broken in that respect.
Must have been an interesting transition from tech into sales. Sales is kind of an interesting world. That's where I started in radio years ago.
Oh, really? Okay.
And I got out of it as soon as I could.
Well, my greatest fear moving over into that realm was that there's a bit of a line, and so the technologists versus the salespeople sort of recognize that amongst themselves. And one is, I've got a guaranteed paycheck versus you've got to work for the paycheck. And then when I actually moved into sales, what I found was, and the beauty of it was, if you approach it as a problem solver and look to develop the relationship as opposed to the sale. I've sold $22 million contracts. I've sold $14 million contracts. I've sold $7 million contracts, one step at a time. And it takes time. Granted, you have the pressure from your management, you know, hit your numbers this quarter, right? But the reality is that then when you have that final contract signed, you're a hero, right? How did you get that?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, don't get me wrong, but if I had to sign on the dotted line of a contract and put my job at risk or my company at risk, I'd like to have a relationship with the company and the person that I've been dealing with for longer than 3 seconds.
Yeah, I had a very interesting experience with a large contract. I was working for a company called All West Systems, and we were doing sound, paging, and fire alarm.
Okay.
And we end up negotiating with the new Denver airport when they were getting ready to build that.
Okay.
And I'll never forget it. The guy that was running our company was named Peter Perry, and Peter and I went into the meeting with my design and his concept. And we were there a couple hours. And we expected to be there 10 minutes, and we're looking at each other as the clock goes around and around going, I think we have this. Right. And we signed this $12 million airport deal. Right. Where we were going to do all the paging, all the background music, all the fire alarm. And on the way to the car, he looked at me and he said, that's it, we're done. He said, it's never going to be bigger than this because this is the biggest one we could get. Right. Are you depressed? I said, well, now I am. You know, it's kind of a strange realization when you're in a business where you realize that maybe you've reached the peak deal already. You know?
I think...
And I got in the car thinking, well, it's back to volume, you know.
Well, I think the one thing, truly, aside from working from Hewlett-Packard, and I took a bit of a renegade path after that because I ended up being part of the spinoff to Agilent. So I decided to go buy a semiconductor company. From there, I worked for a $1 billion software firm and then worked in a number of startups. And I think the thing for me that I found was that I just, on to the next endeavor, right? I did what I said that I was going to do, whether it's for a small client that's just getting started or for a multi-billion-dollar organization. While there are great rewards that come as a salesperson on the back end of that, it comes from my project management days of here we had a plan and we executed on that plan and we saw the results of it.
Sure. And what was funny is what you were just talking about, and Peter actually retired within 3 months of getting that contract.
Okay.
And his last statement to us was, "You manage it." Because it was a rough one. It was a 2-year project.
Right.
A lot of hours for everyone. The company grew like crazy.
Right.
And then, of course, if you can't get the next $12 million deal, well, then you've got to figure out, well, who can I politely lay off, which gets rough.
Right.
Because you can't keep 500 field men around all the time.
Right.
So it's an interesting world to be in that, especially the project management end.
It absolutely is. It absolutely. But I think that, like I said, translating that into a sales acumen is really being close to the people who are going into the business and actually doing the work and maintaining that relationship, so that if I say to you as a executive of an organization, we're going to do XYZ, and the reason I know we're going to do XYZ is because I've got Joe or Sally or whoever it is who were tied at the hip, if you will. I've been in that hot seat, so I guess I have a unique appreciation for, like you said, being in trouble for something that somebody overpromised.
Oh yeah, exactly. And I've been there as well. I mean, there's only certain things that audio systems can do.
Right.
And when you get a guy that's not an audio guy and you tell him go out and sell, well, his audio system's going to do everything and wash your car.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, so does that come with 4 personal assistants?
Yeah.
And, right.
And I've known some very, very stressed out folks that were project managers for companies like Oracle.
Right.
That were dealing with a project that was so overpromised.
Oh.
That here they are with the guy that bought it, and they're saying, we're really sorry, but we don't do this, we do this.
Right.
That can eventually get you to that, but it's going to take,
Right. Well, and like I said, it's setting realistic expectations.
Yeah.